Hey guys, here it is, the ADV2 from Floatwheel. And I didn't really want to make this video, but I feel like I have to because there is issues with that board that need to be addressed as soon as possible. Many of you who will be receiving this board will receive it potentially with a dead battery. So I want to show you how to check on your board and how to safely determine whether you can charge it or whether you have a potential fire hazard on your hands. So let's check it out. The first thing you want to do after inspecting for physical damage or anything, power it on, press that button, and it should come up. For 4 or 5 seconds there should be a power up sequence, and when that's done you will see LEDs here that indicate the charge status. I have 60%, so I'm good, but many of you will receive it at low battery. And so if you have 2 or more, 2 cells means, 2 LEDs means 20%, you're good. Plug in your charger, you're good to go. But if you're at 1, or even worse, some people, for them it doesn't even power on, I would refrain from just plugging in the charger. If it doesn't power on, contact Tony immediately and see what he says, but I would not plug it in. If you're electrically inclined, you can open it up, measure the voltage manually, or inspect the board. Maybe you're lucky and something is disconnected and that's the reason it doesn't power on, but do not just plug in the charger. If your board shows 1 LED lit up, that means that you have anywhere between 10% down to 0% or minus 20%. So as soon as you have, I think, more than 40 volts, the board will actually power up, but 40 is not necessarily safe. 40 volts would be 2 volts per cell, which is critically low. All right, so I'm going to connect with float control. That'll be the easiest, just to see what's going on. It'll ask you to configure the board. Just put in the name and that's all you need. The rest is pre-configured. It recognizes that it's a float wheel.
Be careful.
Now we're going to ignore all the warnings. We can get to that later, but right now we have more important issues, and that is we want to look at your cells. So you long press on the voltage and then you see the BMS details. And here on the initial screen, you see the summary. You see minimum, average, and maximum. Those are your cell voltages. What you want to make sure is that your cells are somewhat balanced, or at least you don't want a single cell to be well below 2.5 volts. If it's 2.3, yeah, I guess you can say you can get away with that. And Tony will probably say 2.0 is fine too. So anything, if it's in the 2s, I guess for a brand new pack that just got built with brand new cells, probably hasn't been sitting at that low voltage for a long time, presumably. So it's probably safe. But if you're below 2.0 on any single one of those cells, I would not touch it. I would not charge it. I mean, it's safe to look at it and stuff, but charging it with any cell below 2 volts is definitely sketchy territory, and I wouldn't advise doing it. So reach out to Tony if that happens. Now, if you don't have an iPhone, you don't have float control, you can do the same also with Vest tool. I'll show you how that works. You see the ADV2, you hit connect, and the first thing that happens is that you're now connected to the communication module, the VESC Express. You're not connected to the actual controller. And so here you have to press CAN on the bottom right, and you see the CAN devices. And the ADV500, that is the actual controller that you want to connect to. And when you do that for the first time, it asks you load custom user interface. You will say yes, load without asking. And now you're connected to the actual controller, and you will have this app UI tab and so on. But since we want to find out what's going on with the voltages, there is this BMS tab up top, and here you see all the voltages. So again, you want to look that none of them is below 2 volts. And you also, if you're curious, and especially if you're charging it from a low voltage, keep an eye on these temperatures. If for some reason the temperatures start climbing rapidly, or even climbing at all, when you're charging with a slow charger, they should remain pretty constant. T4 and T5 should be the cell temperatures. So 21 and 21, that's your cells. The first one is the BMS, 26, 25.72 here. That one will rise a bit. That's nothing to worry about, but your cell temperatures, they shouldn't change under normal circumstances, so they should be pretty close to your ambient temperature. So that's how you would monitor charging. And now let's take a quick look at those issues that got flagged. Now my GoPro video got corrupted, so I'm going to have to re-record all the audio. Basically, the first two issues are about max currents and about temperature cutoffs. Both of these are nothing that will prevent you from riding initially, but you want to fix them as soon as possible in the VEST tool. So let's go and switch over into VEST tool. By the way, you can only be connected to one app at a time, so make sure you disconnect from float control when you switch to VEST tool and vice versa, or kill the app, but you can't have two apps connected simultaneously. Now, before we make any changes in VEST tool and potentially screw it up, we want to take advantage of the backup feature. There is the backup configs button at the bottom of the main screen. So this is what we want to hit after we have made sure to be connected to the actual controller, so the ADV500. We hit that button, and then we hit OK, and that's it. Now we can restore it if we screwed something up. But once we've done all our changes and tested them, you probably want to make a fresh backup overriding the previous one, just so that you have all those fixes in the backup as well. Now, we need to go to motor config up here at the top, and then in general there is current. So in currents we have 180 and minus 180, and then the apps max is only 220. And VEST tool itself tells you right away what the problem is. So I don't know why Tony was ignoring that, because you can read it for yourself, pause it, read it, but Tony should have read it too. You need 50% higher apps max than your current max. And for some reason, Tony doesn't seem to understand this. I've had discussions with him about it. But if he's worried about anything, he should be worried about the 180, not about the 220. Let's keep it simple. Set it to 270. Now, the next issue is the temperature thing. So up there in general and then temperature, we scroll down to your acceleration temperature decrease. The default is 15. It is not meant for one wheels. One wheels need to have 0 so that we can actually get our tilt back prior to overheating. And this way we avoid nosedives when the motor gets hot. And now there's two other issues that float control did not yet tell you, because it will only tell you after you fix the first ones. It sort of prioritizes, it stops adding more warnings if some critical ones are found. But the next issues are related to the frequencies in the IMU and the float package. So this IMU is different from the first controller So you need to put 832 in here. That's the correct frequency for the IMU. And then you need to do the same in float package specs. Also set it to 832 and you're good to go. Now there are other little mistakes that Tony made in the setup, but they're not critical, and I'm going to first ride the board a little bit and see what else I can find. But the critical ones that will get flagged in float control should now be fixed, and we can start riding the board. So once you've assembled your board and you've charged it, then it should just work out of the box. You shouldn't need to make any changes. And before you do, I would actually do a basic test. So I've got my beta tester here. So let's go and try it out. All right, and as you can see, it works. We didn't do anything yet besides those changes that I just showed you in the video. But those weren't even needed to get what we're doing right now. So yeah, and if you do have problems, then go on the Discord and describe it and start troubleshooting it. But for the majority of you guys, it should just work. All right, that is all. Thanks for watching.